Okay, Orb of Corrosion on some heroes is a really effective item. Getting it super fast in the laning stage on the right heroes is really powerful. Heroes like Monkey King can really profit from it well because they obviously want chase anyways, and it also applies to his clones on Monkey King when he ulties. So Orb of Corrosion across the bat, just really good on some heroes. Very good on Ricky, basically any like melee chasers. Tusk, it's really good. There are some heroes it's not very good on. I would not buy it on ranged heroes, for example, because then the Orb of Venom part is a waste. And now that it also has a 100 gold recipe, it's basically going to be pushed a little bit more outside of viability, unless it's like really, really good on your hero. So, not too surprised to see it nerfed, and it'll probably just lower the amount of times that people buy this a little bit more, which is, I think, super reasonable and fine. Falcon Blade got tiny buffs. It was a lot of people complained that it seemed like a really bad item when it came out, and they were slightly right. Its best usage was on carries or mid players that needed slight mana regen, basically. Or it's effectively like kind of replacements for like Wraithbends if you really want it. But generally, the mana regen it provided and the health and everything bonuses were not really that amazing. As time went on, I would basically only see mid players occasionally buy it. I'd sometimes see like interiors mid buy it that need a little bit of mana regen. You could argue that if you're like a semi-low HP mid hero, it's becoming a better item now, because mid heroes that need HP, you can't really just buy Null Talismans. That only gives you 2 strength each, which is 40 HP. But the fact that the HP on this is going up a little bit more is starting to make it look a little bit more appealing. Let's compare Falcon Blade with Vid Booster, for example. Vid Booster gives you 150 health. Or sorry, 250 health for 1,100 gold. Falcon Blade now gives you 175. So it's like approaching Vid Booster value, raw Vid Booster value, while still giving you 10 damage and 1.8 mana regen, which is a decent amount. So if you are a hero that isn't buying Battle Fury and you want a little bit of raw HP and a little bit of damage, then it can be okay. I would still only ever buy this on, I guess, mid heroes at this point, maybe some carries. But so many carries get away with just rushing Battle Fury. With maybe like a Wraithband or Power Treads ahead of time, that it seems like a mistake to ever buy this when you could just have those items instead that will accelerate you so much. But I would not buy this on an offlane hero. I think things like Phase or Bracers are way better for offlane typical heroes. So yeah, Falcon Blade probably still pretty situational, but it's getting a little bit better. So. Is Falcon Blade better or worse than Vlad's for Tide? I mean, Vlad's on paper is far better because you get lifesteal and stuff like that, but having HP and damage and mana regen is fine. But the thing is that, like, I would rather you buy a Bracer than buy a Falcon Blade, pretty much. Bracer gives you 100 HP, it gives you 8 damage, and a little bit of int and agility, which are negligible but still a little bit effective. So, like, Bracer costs half as much, it gives you about half as much HP, and it gives you almost as much damage, and it doesn't give you mana regen. So it's like, why wouldn't you just fit a really fast Bracer in? And you can buy Bracer instantly, by the way. It's like your first item that you buy on a lot of like offlane heroes or carry heroes if they're strength based, because it gives you a little bit of laning advantage, raw HP, stuff like that. Helps you fight to the death. Why would I hold out for an item that takes like 3 things to purchase into it? Unless I started with like a Sage's Mask in lane or something like that, I don't really see why Falcon Blade Rush is really comparable to like a Bracer. So in terms of like something like that a Tide would buy, you don't need mana regen that bad on Tide. You can get it from other sources, either a bottle or arcane boots, or you generally Greaves build is probably dead on Tide based on the way that mech functions right now, by not giving auras. But some pro Tides buy Meteor Hammer. I don't know. Like I just wouldn't say that it's good on like that many offlane heroes. Like buying 2 Bracers is almost certainly better, and bringing Clarities for mana is good. It is kind of like a bad Aquila for sure, but Aquila was just really strong because it gave you really quick damage in lane. But with the Basie used to give like 7 damage. So you'd buy Basie to lane better, to fight better, and then it would also give you a lot of armor. It would give you like 3 to 4 armor with mana regen. So it kind of covered like all of your early game needs. That's why Aquila was so good. Good for Weaver. Yeah, I would say it's pretty good for Weaver, for sure. Weaver does have mana needs, damage is good, health is really good. Those are like the 3 basic things that Weaver needs. You can get a lot of that from power treads, generally, just from tread switching. A lot, you get mana, you get damage, you get health. But yeah, it could be okay for a Weaver to get this relatively quick. That one seems all right, but there's so it's basically like limited to like carry heroes that are not going to get Battle Fury, or some mid heroes that need a little bit more health boost. So maybe like non-conventional mid heroes. Maybe that's how I make mid lich work, guys. I just buy like 2 Falcon Blades. Sounds pretty bad, but it might actually work actually. Because that's what how I was having trouble solving that problem, is that like mid lich had no HP, so it just felt garbage. It's still probably bad, but maybe mid lich is not legit. It's actually not. It's really bad. The hero's abilities are so scaled around being a support that like trying to play it in the mid role is just really hard. Maybe on bounty, no, way too expensive for what bounty needs. Way too expensive. Health is fine on bounty, damage is fine, mana regen is good, but like you can just buy urn or something instead. I'd rather you just buy urn on bounty or something. It doesn't seem worth the gold. Most of the time it's not, no. But the fact that it has a little bit more HP is definitely making the item better. What's going to hold the item back actually is the fact that it gives 3 different things right now. Because it's like, these are all things that people kind of want, but they can get more efficient items that do these things in different places. So it makes the whole thing hard to buy, basically. Health, mana, regen, damage. It's good. Would you rush it? I mean, 1.8 is starting to look like a shitload, actually. But that's a lot of mana regen. If there is some, like, laning type... But in the same vein, like, you can buy 2 null talismans, and that gives you... What? 1.2 or something? So, like, that's part of the issue. Yeah, you get 0.6 mana regen from a null talisman. You buy 2 null talismans, and now you have 1.2 mana regen. So, for a lot of heroes, it makes more sense just to buy 2 nulls. Again, this is only 1 item slot, and it is twice the cost. But so maybe there's some circumstances where, like, if you have like a mid-int hero that isn't very spell damage focused, you could probably justify Falcon Blade over null talismans. And if you don't really need int that bad, so let's try to find some examples. Let's do... I mean, you could buy it on like strength heroes or agi heroes too if you wanted. Some agi hero that has a lot of mana regen needs. Maybe like a gyrocopter or something. I actually could really... I think gyrocopter makes perfect sense on, now that I think about it. Gyrocopter has lots of mana needs. Damage is good. HP is good. Wraithbands are okay on the hero. Like, attack speed's good, but primarily Gyro's actually about casting spells. So having a lot of mana regen on Gyro, it could be justified on him for sure. I think next time I play Gyro, I'll buy Falcon Blade on him. That's a really good idea. Because otherwise you just don't have as much mana regen from other places. Ogre? No. No. Int heroes, you can get it from so many other places, typically. If you're playing like Ogre Core or something, I guess. But if you're playing Ogre support, no. Support should not be spending any money on damage items almost ever. They can get away with like stat items sometimes because it gives them mana regen and damage. But buying raw damage on a support is almost always bad. Queen of Pain's better off buying null talismans. Skywrath buys nulls. Storm buys nulls. Tinker would buy nulls. Like so many of these heroes. Maybe Wind Ranger is a good example. She doesn't do that much spell damage, just power shot and like Maelstrom procs. So Wind Ranger going for a Falcon Blade would make a lot of sense, in my opinion. I like that one. I think that makes a lot of sense. But there's not that many int heroes that don't do heavy magic damage in the mid lane. Invoker still does a lot of spell damage, so null talismans make sense on him. Enigma likes the mana regen a lot. Maybe Enigma, you could argue that it's really fine, but he does do a lot of spell damage with like Midnight Pulse and his ulti. So it's kind of hard to find int heroes that like don't do really good spell damage in some way. And then our strength heroes typically don't need to buy HP items, so that's why buying Falcon Blade on them is usually a little unnecessary. They'd rather buy strength items through, or sorry, they'd rather buy HP items through strength. So strength heroes don't really want Falcon Blade usually because they can just buy bracers instead. It gives them HP and damage. So talking about Falcon Blade for any of these heroes is probably a little unnecessary for the HP component at least. Because again, they can just buy strength items. It does give them a lot of mana regen. Strength heroes do need mana regen sometimes, but they can probably get it from other places. Clarity potions, bottles, things like that. Would any of these guys really want a Falcon Blade? Not more than like buying a Basilius. Like, why wouldn't they just buy a Basie or something like that on most of these heroes for half the cost? HP damage. I don't know. It just doesn't really work on a lot of them, I don't think. Echo Saber, yeah, but Echo Saber is expensive, so we're basically talking about like early game items. Anything everything we're talking about buying is like under like 1200 to compare with Falcon Blade, because it's an early game item. Yeah, almost any right click strength hero is not going to want Falcon Blade. They would have to be like in need of HP, raw damage, without the need to buy strength items for whatever reason. But it's hard to think of examples of that. So basically, Falcon Blade is just garbage on most strength heroes. That's compared to Bracer. No strength hero is going to want to buy Falcon Blade because they'd rather buy bracers or strength items. Okay, so we'll just ignore all the strength heroes. So we thought of int heroes. We can think of like a couple int heroes, but not many, who are semi-comfortable with just the raw HP increase, basically, which is pretty good on them, but also need to right-click as a component of their damage, and don't need spells that much. That's a lot of like variations, like a lot of very specific things. You could maybe say it's pretty good on Bloodstone heroes because it is a shitload of mana regen and it's one item slot. So maybe like Storm Spirit Death Prophet could get away with Falcon Blade over Null Talismans. I think that would make some sense to go with those items instead. And then what else? And then we're talking agility heroes that need HP, damage, and mana regen. There's a lot. This fits agility heroes a lot better. So let's try to think of some agility heroes that don't also really need the attack speed from Wraith Bands, because that's usually what pushes Wraith Bands towards agi heroes a lot, is the fact that they get a lot of attack speed. They get 10 attack speed and 5 damage, which is going to accelerate them a lot faster in terms of jungling than Falcon Blade will. So like an Ursa type here would be a good example. HP, damage, he doesn't need attack speed because he's already got it from Overpower more or less. So you could hypothetically get it, but do you need the mana regen that bad? Not really. You can solve it other ways. Some like mana spamming hero, Shadow Fiend, maybe. It's kind of good on Shadow Fiend because of the mana regen. But generally, like most of these heroes, it just doesn't make that much sense. Razor, maybe, but he does kind of like attack speed. There's just not going to be a lot of heroes. Clinks is a pretty good example, I would say, of a hero that could kind of use it. But again, Wraith Bands are also really good on him because they increase his DPS by a lot. And killing in a short period of time is very good for him. So I would say the best candidate is definitely Gyro, without a doubt. Lots of mana needs. Attack speed doesn't really scale him that much for a while. Pango? Pango's not a bad example, yeah, because he doesn't need attack speed too badly because he's using Swashbuckle to attack. The damage that it gives him is a little irrelevant, though. Generally, Pango doesn't care about damage increases, so that's what's kind of missing from your equation. That, yes, you're right that he doesn't need attack speed as much, but he also doesn't need right-click damage as much, because it's usually based on procs. So, Pango is yes, but no also. Nyx Assassin would rather buy other items. So, like, it's really specific. It's hard to find heroes that the item fits for. So what this basically means is what's going to happen to Falcon Blade over the course of history is that it's going to be buffed a little bit here, and maybe people are going to use it a couple cases, but generally they're still going to tend to other items instead. And slowly over time, it'll be buffed again, or it's going to be reworked to have slightly different components. Because right now, like, health, mana, regen, damage is just like a weird composition that kind of only fits like really select heroes in comparison to some others. Hoodwink? Hoodwink is a really good example, actually. I like Hoodwink a lot. Yeah, Weaver was the other good one that you guys said. Weaver, Hoodwink, and Gyrocopter, I think, are some really good examples. Hoodwink's a really good example because while attack speed is good because you buy damage items typically, so attacking faster is fine. When you throw your Acorn Shot out, it's based on your damage. So doing more damage and having health with Hoodwink would be valuable, as well as mana regen. So yeah, I would agree. It's actually a pretty darn good item on Hoodwink over Wraith Bands. So maybe like one Wraith Band, one Falcon Blade on Hoodwink. It's kind of expensive though. It's like 1,500 gold, but you could get away with that for a hero only item. No. 4s are usually going to prefer to buy like something like an Urn instead of a Falcon Blade. Because Urn gives 1.5 mana per second. It doesn't give you that much strength or health or anything, but you'll just buy an Urn on a strength hero. Again, if you're buying this on a 4, you'd have to buy it on a 4 that has kind of weak HP, ideally. And then we're talking about 4s that are int heroes usually, or agility heroes, in which case yes, but also not so sure. Is this a big change? No. The patch, no, is not that big of a change. Waga also thought that Falcon Blade could potentially go on any heroes that buy Soul Ring as a substitute plus stat item. So you could buy Falcon Blade instead of Soul Ring. Yeah, that sounds okay. Because, I mean, it is a lot of mana regen for the cost. Because if you buy a Void Stone, it's like 2.2 mana regen, 2.25 mana regen. It's a little bit cheaper than Falcon Blade, but if you complete Falcon Blade, it's semi-comparable. Mirana 4. Yeah, seems okay in Mirana, actually. You get enough attack speed from Leap. Yeah, I kind of like Mirana 4. That makes sense. For Rubik, no, you don't really right-click that much. I'd rather you just buy like the fluffy hat, frankly, on Rubik. Techies would not buy this, no. You don't right-click on Techies. It gives you mana regen, and the health is kind of unnecessary, and the mana regen's good, but you could just buy mana regen instead. Or Spirit, no. You'd rather just buy Urn. You don't need HP items on, or Spirit 2 particularly. So, Swiftlink got buffed. Allows you to exceed your maximum movement speed. Movement speed increased from 30 to 40. This was the one of the three that I thought was the weakest when it came out, so I'm pleased to see that it got a buff here, because it kind of confirms what I thought about it. I've seen it bought a couple times, but it's all like extremely like carries that are like really far ahead, so they bought it anyways. A little bit of bonus damage is fine, and then like you can use it to kill heroes, gank, initiate, and then try to kill them. That's kind of cool, but it's still really expensive for 50 attack speed, 50 damage. I mean, it gives you 25 agi as well, but there's a lot of heroes this just isn't needed on. Satanic buffed, seen as pretty weak right now. It dealing 55 damage is going to go a little bit towards making the item better. It is kind of inexpensive right now at 5,000 gold, but there's also a lot of solutions to lifesteal, and there's generally just better items than Satanic right now. So for a lot of heroes, it's not going to be good. Chip Vest buffed slightly in terms of damage. The second number is really big. This is the damage from creeps. So if you're using it to jungle, it's going to work a lot better. And I actually really like that they included Chip Vest and what's that mask that gives you lifesteal? I think those two items are excellent because they give outlets for a lot of heroes to be able to shift to the jungle earlier than they would be able to otherwise, because it's a neutral item and not something you have to pay money for. So for I like that it can accelerate you in those circumstances to help make heroes that aren't as good at power jungling more competitive there. Bullwhip is another neutral item that I think is a little underwhelming. They have made it better for burst movement speed, 20% increase for 4 seconds instead of 5. This is better generally because when you're using offensively, having more movement speed for a slightly shorter duration is better than moderate movement speed for a slightly longer duration. And if we multiply the numbers together, 20 times 4 is 80, 15 times 5 is 30, 45, 60 plus 5, 65. So technically this is more slow. If you multiply the numbers, so you can basically estimate like what's the total amount of slow we're dealing. So this is actually more slow, and it's in a shorter period. So using it, you can either use it as a phase on yourself, or you can use it on your opponent to slow them down. And it's going to be a lot more effective to slow your opponent now, being a 20%. But generally, I tend not to use Bullwhip. Are both? Is my math really wrong? All right, I fucked up. Sorry. You're right. 15, 30, 45, 60. Oh, yeah, I did. I shaved off like a bunch. Okay, you're right. They're both 80. My bad. So the slow is the same, but it being shorter, I think, is generally better. Just because in a lot of Dota is like reaction, right? Right, you react to something, and then once you react, you need to get the fuck out as soon as possible. And this goes both ways. When you're ganked, it's important that you get slowed during that time period when you're being ganked. So this should just make it a better item. The cooldown's pretty long, 12 seconds, but it's kind of like a shitty version of Spider Legs is how I would describe it. But you can use it offensively, so maybe there are some heroes that this would be really good with. If you're playing AA, for example, you could bullwhip your opponents. If you are playing Skywrath Mage, bullwhipping your opponents would be good as well. So there are some heroes that should be thinking about this offensively. Cloak of Flames is pretty good. Reduce the armor by 1. Radius reduced a little bit. And here's a stealth patch that they did. They made illusions deal less damage with Cloak of Flames. They applied this recently, but they didn't bother to making a big patch notes because it was too good. Because if you had an illusion hero and you got this item, it was very good because you could just push out lanes basically like Radiance. Because Radiance did not 45 damage per second. I can't remember how much it does on illusions. 35 damage per second. So yeah, it was like better than Radiance. When they changed it. Psychic Headband cooldown is reduced by a lot, 30 down to 20. I think that's fair. The Psychic Push is pretty good. The 12% intelligence is really moderate. We're talking like 12 int. in the late game. But the fact that it can push an enemy away from you is actually quite good. I've used it once or twice in really nice, effective ways. So I think Psychic Headband's pretty good. Book of Shadows, we actually dropped that one game. Nobody used it. Target enemy, ally, or self, causes the target to become untargetable, but also silence, muted, and disarmed. Silence, can't cast spells. Muted, can't use items. And disarmed, can't attack. Applies a basic dispel. So basically just 3 seconds to stay alive. They'll reduce the cooldown, more night vision, and bonus attributes. It's basically like a support item. You can use it on enemies. It's a little dangerous. I think it has potential to be really good. People are just going to have to get used to it. Because when it dropped, I couldn't remember what it did. And the game was too crazy to like really consider if I should use it. But plus 12 attributes is pretty good. Should this dodge AoE damage? Yeah, I guess that's the thing, right? It doesn't make them not die to AoE damage, which I think is fine. It's like Shadow Realm basically on Dark Willow without being able to do anything while you're in it. So 3 seconds. But I mean, effectively using it on somebody is super big in certain late game situations. No Abyssal Blade, things like that. Obviously, it's going to depend on the disables the enemy has or the heroes they have, but it definitely can be really effective. Curse of Avernus Shard slow increase. This was needed. I have tried to bat it once. I won my lane, then like I was playing, it was a weird MMR game, so it was very spread. But I felt like the Shard slow bonus was a little bit weak. But this would put, with the Shard, it was put your slow up to 35% with every hit, which is pretty incredible. Berserk Potion cooldown reduced to 35. I do want to play Offlane Alchemist today. I want to see if I can make that work better. I have been meaning to try to play like Axe and buy the Shard. I mean, it's a 1400 gold for 35 attack speed basically, which is kind of weird. And traditionally Axe just makes a lot more sense with standard items, but I mean, you could definitely attack pretty fast with this hero. If you get 25 attack speed and you get the Shard when you initiate, that's 50 attack speed, baby. You'll be attacking quite rapidly, which could be a lot of damage. But I don't think I've played Axe since the patch came out, so I never even got to entertain the idea. Batrider Sticky Napalm now does half damage to Ancients. This was seen as busted. I saw some pros talking about it. Basically that you could jungle and do Ancient stacks with Batrider. Get like level 3 or 4. I didn't watch anybody ever do it. I would see games where there were a shitload of stacks and Batrider was getting ready to clear it maybe, but because Ancient magic resistance went down and Sticky Napalm now did full damage to creeps instead of half, it was seen as like busted because you just have to like play a weird game where you can test Ancients against Batriders. So that being changed is good. Beastmaster damage reduced by 2 because the win rate's really high. I don't even know what his Shard does. I cannot remember. Blood Rage steals 2% of the target's max health. That's right, the pure damage, and heals him for that amount. Only works for Bloodseeker. That's when you Blood Rage and right click. Okay. 2% pure is pretty big. If they have 2,000 health, that 10% is 200, so 2% would be a fifth of that. So like what, 40 or something? 40, 80, yeah, 40. That's pretty big. If they have 2,000 health, it's 40 pure damage to them, and you heal that much. So, and you're using Blood Rage anyways, but it does require you to go right-click Bloodseeker build, for sure. Doesn't seem terrible, though. But I haven't even begun to try Bloodseeker. I think I saw a Melk tweet about it, what he thought his ideal build was, but I cannot remember. I'd have to go check into that. Broodmother Silken Boa Shard root duration increased. I haven't seen anybody, I barely seen anybody play Brood, but I certainly haven't seen anybody also buy the Shard. 75 DPS, that's like, they basically just increased the damage as well. So that is 150. It's basically like 180 damage now. 180 damage, roots for 2.5 seconds, 12-second cooldown. It's okay. I haven't seen anybody buy Jetpack in a while either. Cooldown reduced to 20. Mana cost heavily reduced. This could actually really justify getting picked now. Going from 150 to 75. Movement speed bonus is up. Just all around better. Darkseer normal punch illusion damage dealt increased. And the max stun duration increased as well. I think I only bought this one game. And I kind of forgot how it worked, but it's not a 2-second stun guaranteed. It's at max 2-second stun, so you have to move a lot for it to work. I don't know what the minimum is. That's the question that I'm most curious about. Let's try it out, because it's a skill that I'm having trouble like justifying its value right now because I don't know what the minimum is. Yeah, it's a very small stun, basically. Yeah, it's like almost none. You make the illusion or whatever, but... And I guess you can stun through BKB, but... I don't know.
I will claim first blood.
Okay, let's continue. Disruptor Thunderstrike, Shard Radius increased. This is the damages nearby enemy units. You could cast it on your ally, and it gives them movement speed and does damage. So increasing the radius means it's going to be a little bit more effective for chasing people. Fireball Shard, mana cost reduced. 80 damage per second for 10 seconds. 450 AoE is actually huge. That's like really, really big, actually. But reducing the mana cost is going to make that more appealing. 450 AoE is massive. That's like a Chronosphere or something. It's really, really big. So maybe it'll be more justified then, because then you can like stun, throw the fireball down. You're just dealing a lot of damage. Because your stun's lasting 3 seconds, so we're talking 240 damage basically at minimum. So for 1,400 gold, it's not a terrible way to boost your damage a little bit in the short term, but it being 100 mana is kind of a lot. Frostero Shard now also adds plus 5 damage per stack. I actually bought this one game when I was playing against a Bristle and a Timber maybe, because I was like, I want to reduce their healing. We lost the game, but lowering the regen by 10% per stack up to 7 is pretty good, and the fact that it also increases the damage by 5 per stack is kind of good, because that means once it's maxed out, the regen is lower, and I'm also doing 35 more damage, which is not terrible. It's like an extra benefit that it wasn't going to be there otherwise. I had like 1 or 2 good fights with it where we popped the guy and then the other stacks exploded and hit some other people, but in those certain circumstances it could be effective. But generally, if Drow is the one that has to play for that, it's not really like how her hero works, but it gives her some options, I guess, in pubs if you want to do some weird stuff. Grimstar getting buffs, actually, despite... He's been pretty popular as a mid-hero, actually, and I have played him as a core before, and I always thought he was decent there. But you kind of need to win your lane, and pleased to see that Inkover has been buffed, because I haven't gotten a chance to play Grimstroke core yet, or even support and buy this shard yet, but I think I thought it looked good before, now it's even better. Does cast range is increased by a lot, the damage is up, and the movement speed slow has gone up by a little bit, but mostly the damage going up and the cast range going up is huge. Covers an enemy in ink for 6 seconds, slows their attack speed and their movement speed, and it deals 320 damage over 6 seconds. So basically you just ulti, you throw your silence, and you ink over, and then it takes a lot longer for them to kill the silence thingies. So I don't know, it just seems good to me. It's just more damage. It doesn't require you to have to use like ink swell. Like imagine if I'm from range on Grimstroke and I ulti and silence and ink over, I'm doing way more damage than I was before just by having this. Obviously you still have to pay for it, but outside of like getting a nice stroke of fade in or something like that, it just seems valuable to me. But when people play Grimstroke, by the way, and it's just like a slow, imagine if like I encounter somebody on the map and there isn't even a good ulti target, I have a slow now, a 14-second slow for 6 seconds. Like it just seems kind of good to me, personally. You could defend yourself against solo people trying to kill you, whereas Grimstroke normally really struggles with that, because you can't just like cast a spell on a guy to stun him or to slow him down or stop him from killing you or to prevent him from running away. You have to like land Stroke of Fate, or you have to use Ink Swell on somebody else. My phone just fell out of my pocket. Okay, Huskar Inner Fire Slow increased. Is this for the shard? I cannot remember. What's the shard do again? Reduce healing and regen by 50% and applies a slow. Lowers cooldown by 3 seconds. Dude, Huskar's win rate is not bad at all, actually. I thought it was garbage, but apparently not. Just people that I play with are losing with it. One guy picked plus 200 attack range and lost at Divine and up. Burning Spear's DPS is where it's at, apparently. And Life Break cooldown. But that's likely because they were winning. I think both talents are potentially good. Burning Spear's pure damage is kind of insane, though. It's a lot of damage. Anyways, the problem with Huskar right now is building him is kind of wacky. People are probably still winning with him sometimes because they're cheesing. They're like picking it last. But bracers are not very good on the hero. They're still good on the hero, but like they're not as good. I don't know. I played with like one Huskar and he played against an A. It was just awful. He had a really bad time. But healing and regen by 50%. Like against a Necrophos or something, this is amazing. Lower the cooldown down to 8. Duration lasts for 4. Half their healing and regen during that time period. It's not bad. But other than that, it's kind of weird. If you want to, I guess it applies slow as well, pushes them away from you and slows you. So against the right heroes, it could be really good. It's kind of like concussive shot on the sniper a little bit, that it pushes them away from you. Where are we at? Huskar. But itemization wise, you probably still want to buy bracers on Huskar anyways because you need the strength. But yeah, I don't know. Ice Wall, Shard cast range. No, I haven't seen any Invoker buy this yet. Maybe they will get there eventually, but right now it just seems like the hero's fine the way he is, so why mess with the Shard? I don't remember what this does. Tethershard movement bonus increased from 5 to 10. Ending Tether stuns enemies touching it and deals damage. And then it also passively increased the movement speed bonus. So that's kind of sick, actually, because right now the movement speed bonus is only 12. So if you buy the Tether, if you buy the Shard now, you're actually increasing your allies' movement speed by 22% instead, which is all CU. So that part's kind of cool. Being able to stun's kind of cool. But I haven't played IO in a bit. Maybe I should try some more. Might be worth trying. But usually you want to spend your money on other items that help heal your allies to keep them alive. Lich got buffs to his Ice Shard. Ice Spire. The health increase doubled and the radius increased a little bit too. I've seen some 5 supports buy this in mid and late game scenarios because it's just like adding some slow and control. I haven't had much success with it when I've used it when playing Core Lich because Core Lich is garbage, but maybe there's some... It's insane Lich can nuke solo target. Yes, but it's like kind of rare and most high level players will have some solution against this. So I don't completely agree. Yeah, Lich mid is bad, guys. Don't do it. Do not do Lich mid. It ain't good. Unless I buy Falcon Blade. Then maybe. Our Admiral Bulldog won with Core Lich. I'm happy for him. Was he mid though? And also, what kind of a game was it? Might have been a weird game. Was he on a Smurf? Who knows? Lifestealer base damage increased by 3. Lifestealer's win rate was not very good, and they increased the feast damage. It's the lifesteal the heal that you get from your opponents just does not deal extra damage to your opponents. It just increases the heal that you receive as Lifestealer. So getting 0.2 more at level 1 is actually pretty big. It's probably like a couple extra points from a neutral creep. But yeah, more base damage on Lifestealer is going to help his laning a lot. So right now he struggles compared to most heroes. Little nerfs to Lycan. The Wolves Cripple, they slow your attack speed and deal damage to you. Do they do movement speed? I can't remember. But putting that at level 4 means that level 6 Lycan is not nearly as strong as level 7 Lycan in terms of damage mitigation against cores, and then also the invisibility. But the invisibility got moved to 3. So now your Wolves are in invis at 6. But they can't do as much damage. So there's kind of a trade-off here. Maybe this isn't that bad. It'll make your jungling slower for sure, because they would be crippling normally on like neutrals and stuff like that. So it's probably worse. But it's better for fighting heroes and ganking. Not necessarily ganking, but like scouting and blocking camps and stuff like that. And then they also nerfed Feral Impulse damage. This is a pretty big deal because this means that Lycan has 8% less damage in the late game. And any strength item he buys is 8% less effective for the course of the whole game. And then also his wolves will have 8% less damage and his necro units. So this is kind of a big deal. But I don't think this is going to touch his win rate by more than like a percentage or something like that. So needed nerf, but I don't think we're going to see too many huge patches until the first DPC season is done because it comes in about 7 days. So I don't know if we're going to see another patch before then, but if there is, it's going to be really baby stuff like this again. I haven't seen anybody play Magnus yet. The Horn Toss Shard landing damage increased to 200, 30-second cooldown. Yeah, basically just a 0.6 second stun and then a 0.25 second stun, and it deals 200 damage. But most people don't use Horn Toss to collect. They just use Shockwave. So, Monkey King base strength reduced by 1. His win rate's pretty high. They reduce his max damage a little. So this is on average 1 damage less than laning stage. Which, when he crits you with his stun, that's like potentially 2.5 less damage. Not that it matters. And a small nerf to Wukong's command Egg Scepter, the spawn interval thing. So, It's going to make like an Ags Rush build a little bit less viable. So the last 4 for 12. So before you could have almost 4 up, and now you're only going to have max 3 up. So small nerf here, small baby nerfs here and here. So a little bit easier to lane against him. Do I think it's still going to be Ags Rush? Some Monkey Kings go Battle Fury from what I've seen, but Ags Rush is just pretty effective because it increases your farm rate. You can use it for fighting. You can use it for jungling. It's kind of good at everything. Gives you, do they get vision? I don't know. But it makes chasing Monkey King a little annoying sometimes. Naga Siren Riptide Shard Slow increased. I gotta reread exactly what it does. I know it lets you cast Riptide, but I can't remember all the specifics. Adds the active releasing a stronger one that slows enemies for 4 seconds. Applies around each illusion, but can only be hit by 1 instance. Okay, and increases the base armor reduction by 2. So minus 10 armor instead, and it also slows. So they buffed the slow. And also added the minus armor. They also remove the damage from it. But basically, using it to... It's definitely going to be better this way, right? Because now it's a stronger slow, lasts for longer. And it just passively increases your armor reduction. I like that they're adding this like passive benefits thing, because sometimes in your mind you're like, it's hard to justify getting, like, I struggled a lot buying the Pudge shard when I played core Pudge, but I forgot that it gives you just a raw decrease cooldown on your ulti, which should have justified me getting it, because lowering the cooldown on my ultimate is amazing, because then I can ulti probably twice every team fight. So these passive bonuses I think are really nice. I think actually core Pudges, it feels kind of good. Minimum, it's like good in pubs now to play core Pudge. Nick's really high win rate right now, so they lowered his movement speed. His shard movement speed bonus is reduced to be more fair, and the mana cost for your ulti has gone up a little bit. So we'll see tiny decreases in win rates for Nyx Assassin, but not much. I don't see a lot of shards. Mana cost on Vendetta is going to hurt a little bit for support Nyx, but ultimately these are going to make almost like very, very little difference. Nerfs to Ogre. Ignite is now easy to do math on. 100 damage at level 1. Not what it used to be, of course. I'm kind of happy with this, because with Ignite being nerfed, buffs to his other skills will eventually come. Is it his win rate even that high? I'm not sure. It must be. It's pretty good. It's not like incredible. Anyways, they're also buffing Fire Shield. I tried it a few times, but I kept forgetting I had it, so I didn't really get a good feel for it. But lowering the mana cost, I think, is super needed. 125 is kind of a lot. The cast range is kind of low, and it's only 3 attacks, so it's kind of hard to use at the right time, it felt like. But if I'm playing against a PA or something, it's really good, because then when he goes on me, I can just cast it. But outside of that, and maybe like some carries jumping on me, I'm not 100% sold on this. It felt kind of weird, not very good. But I guess it does do damage back to them, which is kind of cool. But I haven't touched Ogre much since the patch. Anyways, Ignite damage is still the same amount of level 4. I didn't notice that. But it's less in the early levels. So definitely a worse ability. You're losing 30 damage at level Ignite, so that's massive. So using Ignite as like a lane control kind of thing is not going to feel nearly as good. Maybe it will force Ogres back into like... I don't think getting Bloodlust level 1 is viable at all anymore, but at least you can't like throw out Ignites very easily. You still can, but like the mana cost has gone up a lot and the damage has gone down, so this makes me feel like Ogre is going to feel quite a bit worse as like a lane killer and support, as a support. Slacks will definitely feel these nerfs, because abusing his high damage skills was what made the hero feel okay for Slacks. I mean, you're still going to get Ignite spam, but it does significantly less damage, guys. Like way less damage. At the first level, it's 30 less damage. It does 100 damage instead of 130. That's a massive decrease. And then at level 2, it does 4 times 6 less damage, which is 24. So that is... Oh god, I'm scared to mess up my math again. 60 times 3. Yeah, 60 times 3. So 180 damage. So it used to do a little over 200 damage at level 2. Now it does 180. So... you're definitely going to feel the damage decrease. It's still a good slow. It's still a pretty good damage. It's still a pretty good nuke. If you hit it on 2 heroes, like at Bounty Rune fights, it's still pretty good. But it's not going to be near, like, you're not going to be able to kill nearly as often. You're still tanky. Like, But it's gonna, I don't know, it makes me feel like Ogre is like becoming more and more a bloodlust machine with nerfs like this. Omni Knight talent changed. I actually like this one. They added damage into his level 10, so if you want to play core Omni, it's more viable. And also, this is important because your damage with your shard was based on your base damage, not based on your regular damage, I think. So increasing your base damage by 40 is a really big deal. So I like that. I think it's a nice adjustment. It also means that any damage aura type things are going to be higher because you have 40 base damage. So I think that change is cool. It takes the 15 talent, the damage one away, and then they add a movement speed to 15. So now your choice at 15 is movement speed or purification. And this actually just makes the hero actually a lot better in almost all circumstances, because most supports would almost always grab Heavenly Grace HP regen because it ended up being like 100 HP extra or something, which is a big deal. And therefore they wouldn't get movement speed. But movement speed on supports is actually really valuable because it helps you get in position, similar to cast range. Movement speed has always been kind of similar to cast range and attack range because it lets you catch up or get in position faster. So now as a support, you can buy HP regen and get the movement speed at 15. Whereas before it was like, what, you get 2 purification cooldown, which is okay, but not that incredible. But as a support, I'm really down to get 30 movement speed. Personally, I think that looks really cool. Have not tried Core Omni in a while. Is it good? Probably not. Maybe if you can like play it as one and like crush the enemy offlaner and then they don't have a place to farm, it could be good. But as like a 3, it feels a little bit wacky sometimes still, I think. But can be circumstantially useful depending on their lineup. OD getting buffs now. 2 armor increase is massive. Agility gain increases is a lot. More free attack speed, more armor. Base movement speed increased by 10. These are all like massive buffs. Base HP regen increased by 1. So this is all like a really big deal for OD. Essence Flux chance, your chance to get mana restore has gone up by 5%. And Astral Imprisonment damage increased by 30 in the late game. And slightly more mana steal, especially early game. So with just 1 Astral Imprisonment, you can increase your mana pool by a decent amount. And therefore use it to, what's the duration? 30 to 60 seconds. Okay, so you can basically keep 1 stack up with just 1 point, and that increases your mana pool, which therefore increases the damage you deal with your orb. Sanity's Eclipse base damage has gone up late game by a little bit, and then 15 talent. They removed the armor talent. They've changed it to movement speed. Pretty much nobody bought the armor talent because the mana talent at 15 to the right just increases your damage by a huge amount. It was like 30 pure damage or something like that. It's pretty darn good to have that one. And then Sanity's Eclipse multiplier buffed, and then the Arcane Orb damage is rounded off now, just doing 2% more, which is still quite a lot. It's like another, dozens of pure damage per attack. So this could be huge. I saw some people talking on Reddit about playing OD as a 4 and just trading with Arcane Orb because you get mana back with Essence Flux. Anyways, could work. Let's look at his base stats right now. Yeah, his win rate's definitely going to jump from this, I'm sure. But where are we at? So 6.7 base armor, it's pretty high. His movement speed's huge. His base HP is pretty good. His base damage is really high at about 55. So I would say this looks pretty good for like some kind of a 4 trader. I don't know if you typically support OD does not transition well, but you could also probably lane this pretty effectively, I feel like. You don't have AoE, that's the biggest thing that's missing from OD right now. And ganking side lanes is also hard, but in terms of like right-click nuking people, it doesn't feel too bad. And you would be able to save people with Astral, but still, you're pretty reliant on right-clicking to deal damage. But you could hypothetically get like Arcane Orb and Essence Flux in the laning stage and use it. Potentially. Once every 4 seconds or something. It's probably not amazing. I don't know. I'd have to try it out to see how it feels. But transitioning it probably is wacky. Maybe you could justify it as like a 3 or something. But that feels a little bit weird. But maybe you could. You could pressure the carry with it with Arcane Orb. I could see that maybe. Yeah, I could definitely see 3. I think 3 OD could work, especially with this much agility gain now. And this much base armor. He could definitely lane a lot better as a 3 than before. Skills aren't cheap enough for support OD. Not necessarily. I mean, he's only basically got to cast Astral. Arcane Orb effectively costs, what, 20% of your mana pool? And, every like 3-ish attacks with Arcane Orb, you get your mana back. I guess you only get 20% back, so it's a little bit hard to like go even. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not viable as a support, but as a core, it looks potentially viable. Except that you don't have AoE, which is actually really bad. Because then if you lane against a carry that has AoE, or against a support and a carry that has AoE, they'll just push you out and then pull, and you can't counteract it, which is kind of bad. All right, Spirit Lance Shard now increases the cast range by 200. I thought that the Shard on PL made some sense with like Mage Slayer, the item. Because if you get Mage Slayer on PL, not that people talked about it being cool, but I don't think it's actually that good. I don't think I've seen anybody buy Mage Slayer in a while. But if it does go to 2 heroes and those illusions attack, you could hypothetically use this for Mage Slayer Harass for pretty easy without requiring too much micro. So I think that's potentially cool. And the illusion stays on them for 8 seconds, and the cooldown, does it go down? I think there is potential for that. Increases the damage, increases the cast range, that's it. Okay, so you still have like perm uptime for the Spirit Lance illusion, which is kind of cool. With Mage Slayer. But maybe you get, if you're playing against a Zeus or something, this makes sense, but 35% less spell damage. But generally, it's probably just better to buy like regular items. I feel like almost every time I bought Mage Slayer, it didn't feel good. Dream Coil cooldown increased. Puck has a really good win rate, so I think Dream Coil is definitely the main reason that she's kind of busted. I've played her with Shard, and it's good, but not that incredible. Is not as good as I thought it was. And the 20 talent, the Waning Rift one, is quite effective. Pudge, they buffed him again. I think Pudge core genuinely is good. Once you buy Ags, so your slow is incredibly strong. And Hook is effectively mobility, so you can actually get away with some team fight, but the Shard will now reduce your cooldown by half when you're level 18, so a 10-second cooldown, which is really good because you also have a cooldown that, or a talent that increases the duration of your ulti by 0.8 seconds. So you could have a 3.8 second stun out of 10, which is pretty amazing. And it also does lots of damage and heals you. So I think that Shard, as time goes on, ends up being really effective. I still don't think Pudge support is very strong because it's very finicky. But if you play core and you buy Ags, you farm stupid fast. You can get really tanky, especially with flesh heaps. So I had a game the other day on stream where I had about 6,000 health, maybe 7. I was close to 7, I think. The game ended up being really fun. Uploading it to YouTube soon. Don't know when. Go watch it. Ricky also a high win rate, lowering his base HP regen because laning is pretty strong. Sleeping Dart being buffed again. I don't think anybody's ever bought this yet. The Sleeping Dart slow increased. Fires a dart at the target enemy, putting them to sleep for 3 seconds. At the end of the duration, the target wakes up and takes 150 damage and is slowed by 30% for 4 seconds. Lower cooldown, less mana, more slow. The problem is that like nobody wants to buy this because the build right now with Battle Fury into damage items just like protects you. They go like Battle Fury into Ags or Battle Fury into Ags into Daedalus, and they just do a shitload of damage. And he's invulnerable while you're doing it, so he just doesn't care about anything else. So like Sleeping Dart would make more sense if I'm using like a Diffusal Blade and I'm ganking 2 heroes together. I'll sleep one guy, kill the other guy, or if I'm ganking one guy, I'll Sleeping Dart, put the cloud down, and then I'll start attacking when he comes out, when he has more slow. So you could argue like, oh, it gives you some slow, but like, why is anybody gonna buy this? I don't see anybody playing Ricky 4 when Ricky Core is just so much better, you know? Like maybe, I guess there's potential for Ricky support using this, and they're going to keep buffing this a little bit just to get people to try it. Because that's the thing, like I just don't... Ricky 1 is so good right now, why would I play Ricky in any other role, basically, is my thought. And therefore, try Sleeping Dart. If I'm playing him Core, I'm not going to buy this. I just don't think this will cross my mind as a carry. You can only see it as a 5th or 7th item. Yeah, that's the thing, basically. Skywrath Mage. Ancient Steel, Shard Radius, Shard Status Resistance Reduction. I don't remember what this shit does. So much to read. Ancient Steel debuff now causes other debuffs applied to last 50% longer. Grants vision. I don't even remember reading this. It feels like the first time I read this. Other debuffs applied to last 50% longer. That's kind of busted with the right heroes, guys. Hooray! This is basically like... That's actually really good with the right heroes. Nobody buys. I haven't seen anybody play Sky or try buying this. You could increase a Doom duration. You could increase stun durations. Playing like Sky with any other disables would be really good. Also, if you play Sky Core and you get the Shard and buy like a Hex or something, then your Hex is going to last really long. Like, let's go test this out. Egg Shard Octarine. That does sound quite good, actually. Um, this is basically your normal skill build for Sky right now. Okay, let's do an enemy and then get one of these. So there's 3.5 seconds. I mean, that seems really good, guys. Here, let's do another hero. That was a long time. Like, that seems pretty good. Poison Nova, it probably works. Yeah, probably works like that. Other debuffs applied to last 50% longer. Grants vision over the target. It's still only on one guy, which makes it a little bit more less busted, but I didn't even know that existed. That will... I'll have to keep that in mind. Can lower the Ancient Seal cooldown, obviously. Lowers from 14 to... But if you're playing Core Sky, you probably want Arcane Bolt per cast. So, but if you get Ancient Seal cooldown, to lower that by 8, that becomes a 6-second cooldown, which could then be used to... Basically, I mean, you're lowering status resistance by, like, a shitload, right? If your debuffs applied last 50% longer. That's basically what you're doing. Which is really strong. So, I could see that definitely being useful. I think Fishbait is becoming busted. Nobody's bothered to try this. They're really trying to say, hey guys, somebody buy the fucking shard on Slark, but I don't think anybody's tried. So it lasts for 6 seconds now instead of 4. It reduces your, so it's a 30% slow for 6 seconds. It gives you true sight vision over them. And then if you land your pounce on them, you get 75 attack speed now for the rest of the leash. Which probably sounds a little better than it is. But in terms of like amping up your ability to kill somebody, it's kind of a lot of attack speed. Attack speed is really good on Slark, obviously. But the problem is that, like, it only does so much. I'm trying to like have like normal-ish Slark items or something. I don't know.
That's right.
Because normally we're looking at a skill build something like this, maybe. So like, give this guy some boots or something. I mean,
I've been wanting to say that since this all began.
I mean, that cooldown is pretty low, actually. Alright, with the cooldown being that low, I think it's okay. He's healing. That's a pretty low cooldown. I think that's the best thing about it from what I felt just there. I think the attack speed bonus is weak-ish. It's okay, but it's not that incredible. But if you look at that like a diffusal blade, oh, goddamn. If you look at it like a diffusal blade, it's pretty good. 30% slow for 6 seconds and vision on a 9-second cooldown. It is 50 mana, so you could burn through your mana a little bit faster, but that seems kind of okay. You think it has to be no mana cost? I don't know, 50 is pretty low. They reduced it from 100 to 50 already. And now they, lowered the cooldown more and increased the attack speed bonus? 50 is pretty low. I think at some guys, some heroes, it seems okay. Like, if you want to not have to buy Diffusal Blade, basically, I think Fishbait has potential. And then if you... I mean, Pounce is only going to last for, like, 3.25 seconds or whatever, but... You can increase your Pounce leash a little bit, up to 4 seconds. Most people go Dark Pact damage, so the trend's like... It actually does have a win rate increase. Lifesteal does better than attack speed right now. Agility does better. I don't know, maybe with like lifesteal and more fish bait or something. I guess with Ags, that's the thing. Maybe Ags is better now. Because then you get 2 pounce charges. You get 2 pounce range. Maybe like an Ags fish bait build is good. It kind of makes sense too, because Ags gives you a lot of raw stats, which increases your mana pool. So if you had something like Treads Ags with the Ags shard, it could be the two would just be really beneficial together. I could maybe see something like that work. I haven't seen anybody like touch Slark with Ags in a while, but his win rate's like a little mediocre. It's not seen as very strong. All right, where are we at? I think Ags is maybe something that makes some sense on this. This would make fish bait a lot better, but you need a transition item, some like early to mid game item. Maybe Falcon Blade on Slark isn't that bad. Wraithbands are almost certainly better though because of the attack speed, but it would give you mana regen and HP, which is important. Damage is like kind of unnecessary. No tail goes Treads, Orb, Echo Ags. Yeah, Orb makes perfect sense on the hero. Okay. Echo Ags, that sounds about right actually. And Echo's just way better than Falcon Blade on Slark, I believe. How much mana regen does Echo give? It just got buffed. 2.25. Okay. The double attack with the slow is really nice. The strength is really good. Probably better just to get like 1 Wraithband or no Wraithbands, and then fast Orb of Corrosion because the slow is massive, the minus armor is fine, and the health is really good. Yeah, that sounds about right. Treads, Orb, Echo, Ags. Yeah, that sounds okay. And then you have enough HP to work with to like fight people more consistently. Maybe you can buy the shard afterwards at some point to get some extra slow in. I don't remember. Let's just decline, I think. I think I must have added this guy from a pub game or something because I don't recognize his name. Where are we at? Oops, I didn't mean to do this. What is this shit? Oh no. My game just crashed. Some weird shit just popped up. It was talking about my stream. I don't know how it knew. But I am confused. That was weird. I like pressed shift tab and it had my stream chat in the Steam overlay and I don't know why or how. Very bizarre. And then it crashed me. Anyways, where are we at? Sniper concussive grade, grenade shard mana cost reduced. I think the concussive grenade's actually quite good. Lowering the cooldown to 16 is excellent. I got it one game when I went Deso, Mask of Menace Deso into Butterfly into Satanic, and I was against a Lycan and a Troll, and it was really good against those guys. Really good. 3-second disarm, 50% slow, and a knockback. Hell yeah, dude. And it does damage now. Concussive Grenade's legitimately good on Sniper. I think it should be bought like anytime they have good gap closers. Sniper is still kind of a low win rate hero, but it's like the perfect tool for solving those game problems. And I think as they get more comfortable picking Sniper into lineups like that and buying Concussive Grenade consistently, I think it will be effective. Like no matter what, it does damage. You can literally shrapnel behind somebody, and you could use it like Blinding Light for God's sake. What's the cast range? Doesn't explicitly say, but you could also like shrapnel if somebody runs through and you can concussive grenade them back in the shrapnel hypothetically. Like there are good things about it, even outside of using it against like melee dive heroes. I think it has good potential. Psionic Trap max count increased to 4 with Shard. Does it still do the teleport thing? I don't even know.
The temple center.
Yes. And then Psionic Trap silence enemies for up to 3 seconds. Increases max trap count by 4. You can put traps literally all over the whole map. And then they buff Demon Zeal, the Terrorblade thing for melee form. It's you lose HP, but you get movement and attack speed. You get 100% bonus, more bonus while in melee. So when you're in melee form, this gives you 100 movement speed and 100 attack speed, which is pretty sick actually. It's like really, really sick. 100 movement speed, melee range. I'd use this shit all the time. Whirling Death mana cost increased. Yeah, Timber Cell's been pretty effective, but they did buff Flamethrower. So 30% slow, 90 damage per second. Lasts 7 seconds, debuff lingers for 3. So if you hit somebody with it, it slows them for 30% for 3 seconds minimum and takes 90 times 3 damage. It's kind of a lot. It's a little bit weird on Timber Cell's playstyle because normally it's like pretty bursty. And having some slow is good, but I haven't seen anybody try it in a game. Nerf the mana regen talent, which is fine. Some people get it, some people get health. I haven't played Tree, but the shard now increases your speed in trees by 15%. Just a little bonus there. That could be actually pretty sick because your bonus is already 15, so it basically gives you an extra 15. And then you can root enemies upon attacking, roots them for 1 second and deals a total of 200 damage. How quickly can you go invis again? That's a real question. I just haven't even played Tree or thought to play Tree because he didn't really get that many changes, so it's kind of like, don't care. Oh, that's right, you have to be... Wait.
Prepare for battle.
Oh, you don't have to be invisible to use this. Because, like, I don't have to get the invisibility talent, basically, you know? Like, I could go damage, have an enemy, I can buy the shard, and it will still affect him. Oh, it's like a 10-second cooldown. I still get the bonus, but the passive. I mean, I'm fast and all. Especially if I go, like, actually boots. Certainly if I go, like, tranquils or something, I could be cruising real hard. It's a really good movement speed, but 10-second cooldown on this. I mean, it's okay. Having passive benefits in addition to this is definitely makes it better, though. Because you could justify buying this just for, like, split pushing stuff. To be more likely to get around. Oh, I forgot you lose the movement speed by attacking heroes. I'll keep it in mind when I play Tree. You don't think it's worth the gold? I think if they have like good heroes that looking for you in trees or something, it could be pretty effective because you would be able to chase a lot better. Like that part's kind of cool. But and then Tusk's Sigil has more hits to destroy and better slows. 35 is pretty good. I think the Frozen Sigil is actually pretty decent on Tusk. I think this is justified buying on a lot of supports because you can scout with it and that kind of stuff. Visage Stoneform, Shard, mana cost. I played Visage a few times. I keep forgetting to buy a Shard, but lowering the cost is decent. It heals like 25% of his HP or something like that when he uses it and he becomes invulnerable. So it's alright, but generally I don't feel like I'm dying in burst moments. That's the thing. Like Visage is passive. The way that it works is like it gives you protection against burst, right? So having a stone form that also does that feels a little bit unnecessary. Visage dies by eventually being overwhelmed, kind of. So having something that like just buys you a couple seconds feels weird. I guess you'll get more of your shards back, but like it feels a little bit redundant. It's like you either like crush the fight as Visage or like you get ran over and it's like buying 3 seconds doesn't feel like it's going to make a difference. Oh, it does stun. That's a good point, actually.
I am the guardian of the veil.
That's true. You can stun. 60 cooldown, mana cost 200. Restores 25% of your health. Yeah, that's not a bad point. And then Winter Wyvern Shard. Splinter Blast Shard now also increase the damage dealt by 80. That shard looked like ass. So after you Cold Embrace somebody, it does the Splinter Blast on them afterwards. Now increasing damage by 80 is going to make the base skill actually more useful. This could become kind of okay against some like Lycan type hero because it would kill their summons a little bit quicker, maybe. And then nerf to Wraith King as well. Base damage reduced by 2 to make his laning a little bit weaker because it's way too strong right now. And Vampiric Spirit mana cost increased a little bit, so summoning skeletons is going to cost you a little bit more mana in the early game. Not that you don't max Vampiric Spirit pretty fast anyway, so this is a little bit of a moot point in terms of laning, but and then Reincarnation mana cost. So basically giving him more mana issues to have the counter of mana burn be there, which isn't really the best Wraith King counter right now, frankly. Okay, so that's the patch. After reading all this, I have no desire to watch pro games anymore, so maybe I should update my stream title.